In this video, I will be performing several transformations of the VF-25 Messiah Valkyrie Worldwide Anniversary DX Chogokin by Bandai. So let's start off with me having this VF-25 in its fighter configuration with landing gear down, and from here start to transform it into its Gerwalk mode. I would then flip the fighter mode and stow back the landing gears as seen here. And then once I've closed it, I would then pull the feet of the fighter, which is essentially the rear thrusters of the fighter mode, and then open them up. This way, it should be ready for the Gerwalk mode of the Messiah. Now, once I've pulled them up, I would then fold the wings upwards. This will disengage the lock for the legs as well as the wings, and then opening up the knee guards and slightly raise the one of the legs there to in order for me to remove the gun pod. Next, I will pull out the shield from the rear, as seen here. Okay, put it on my table here, and then I would then fold in the bottom fins of the Valkyrie. So there's a flap for the legs there, and you can simply fold in the bottom fins as so, and that should allow us to continue with our transformation. Next, I will continue bending the knee and the thigh section of the legs here of the engines, and they will now be in its Gerwalk configuration, and then start adjusting the legs. Notice that one of the legs has a very loose ankle, so I'll be doing a fix for that in another video. Right. So once we've stabilized its standing position, I bring down the wings, and what we have here is the hybrid fighter and Gerwalk mode. Right. Next is we'll detach the legs from the fuselage. Note that there is something that flew off, which is the hip armor. So that is designed to be removable in case of like that incident wherein I knocked it over violently when I folded the legs outward. Right? So we will start pulling out the arms from its storage position. So I would lift it up a bit. The hinge will allow limited range of motion for that, and then swing it forward as so. And then we move on to the next arm. And as you can see here, there's a bit of a resistance from folding or swinging it forward. So I'll have to do some minute adjustments in order for it to move. And there, yeah. So careful with the way we fold it out, because we may end up breaking that part, as I'm not sure if it's made out of plastic or metal. So, and once we fold it in, we can adjust the shoulder and then continue with the transformation. I would then pull out this sort of bar from the fuselage, and this is used to hold the gun pod for the Valkyrie in Gerwalk mode, and that will be pinned to the hip section. So now I've attached the gun pod below the fuselage in Gerwalk position. I would then proceed with fixing the arms to its normal position in Gerwalk mode, as so, right? Attach the shield to the left arm, and then we have a semi-completed Gerwalk mode without the gun. So that is the last piece that needs to go in to complete the transformation. So to get the gun attached, we remove the right hand, open it up, and then there's a small stub there that can be connected to. So as for the gun pod, in order to pull or set it into its rifle configuration, we pull out the handle or the grip and then pull out the front section. We could then lift up this particular piece here and attach it to a layer there to give us the internals of the gun pod as a rifle. Next, we will connect it to the hand. Same, there's a notch also in the gun's grip, and then we simply slot it inside, and it should attach to the stub inside the hand, and we close the hand into a fist, and that should allow us to hold on to the gun tightly. And then we simply connect the hand back to the Gerwalk. Okay, so then we can proceed with posing the Gerwalk some more. Like for this example, from a different recording, I've held it similar to a Battroid, but I will need to continue fixing the pose here. So once I'm done, it should show up as a complete Gerwalk position or in Gerwalk mode. It should end up being a stable transformation. Should not move too much, even without the included stand. Okay, so we're done with the Gerwalk transformation. Now we will proceed to the Battroid transformation after I show off the other angle or other view of the Gerwalk. So in order to proceed to the Battroid configuration or the Battroid transformation, we would need to do the following steps. Right. I will switch to my previous view, which is the top view, and it should allow us to begin with the proper transformation for Gerwalk to Batroid. First, we fold in the tail fin and the wings and raise up the um, wing root to the fuselage. So I will go back to my forward-facing camera, and then the really first thing is to remove the bar that is connected to the legs and stow it back to its original position, like so. Okay, push it down. It should be flat and or flush to the fuselage. Next is we begin folding the rear of the fuselage, or rather, we first un or open up the front landing gear section or the front landing gear cover and fold in the nose cone 180 degrees. This will form part of the chest section of the Batroid. Next is we fix or affix the arms so they're ready to be properly oriented in Batroid. And again, in this configuration, I start folding in the fuselage. So note that this particular part or section is very tight, and we will need to disconnect the front fuselage to the chest plate. The front fuselage contains the cockpit, and you have to be careful with this since, as I mentioned, this part is a bit tight, and we carefully lift the chest plate up. And before we slot in the cockpit section, we would need to pull out the head. So the head rests on a plate with several hinges behind the chest plate, and pushing it down will allow it to slide out and backwards. This will free up the head to turn and allow us to rotate the head forwards facing the front. So take care of pushing down the plate inside, as there are two joints or two hinges that allow it to move around, right? So we will then pull out the head and then rotate it. So once it's out, the problem here is that there's no way to connect the rear part of the plate to the body, and it will still flap around. And now I will fold in the cockpit area into the chest plate. So again, we need to take some careful actions here when folding or putting it inside the chest cavity. So here's the another angle of it. So I've pushed up the chest and then pushed it back down to secure it. Next is that I will have to adjust the rear as well as the shoulder section properly so it doesn't move around much when playing around with the Battroid. So there's a specific angle there wherein the shoulder is a bit drooped at the rear, and the rear fuselage is covering the cockpit area, right? So I'm going to secure the neck section as much as I can while folding down the rear section of the fuselage. And then next is I connect the rest of the hips to its cockpit section. So first, I will have to straighten up the legs from Gerwalk back into its straight Battroid position, and then slowly and carefully swivel or turn the legs for 180 degrees, if I remember right, or slowly move them back and forth like what I'm doing here, just so the pins of the uh, hips connecting to the waist will uh, pop out and be able to connect to the waist part. And after connecting it to the waist part, we can pull it back a bit like what I've done here. That should angle the waist a bit, giving the prominent crotch area of the VF-25 Batroid. So once I've done that, I'm doing some more adjustments to the Batroid pose, and that should be it for the Batroid configuration. If you notice that the legs are a bit loose, then that's because there's a ball joint problem with the VF-25. And in another video, I will show how to fix those ball joint issues. Until then,